Welcome to Rebable AI, your daily AI briefing. It's the 12th of July, and we've got 33 stories for you today. Let's dive in. Part 1. Focus. First up today, OpenAI, GPT 5.6 Sol Ultra, has solved a 50-year-old math puzzle, operating in Ultra mode with 64 subagents. It proved graph theory, cycle double cover conjecture in under an hour. Instead of searching for cycles directly, a complex 700-word prompt guided the model to transform the problem into edge labeling and linear algebra consistency. OpenAI's Noam Brown highlighted that this breakthrough relied entirely on public models and parallel test time compute, proving the power of multi-agent collaboration. Next, a major legal battle. Apple is suing OpenAI in California, alleging a systematic campaign to steal hardware trade secrets. Apple claims OpenAI poached over 400 employees, including former product design, VP Tang Tan. One engineer allegedly downloaded confidential hardware files using cloud vulnerabilities, while Tan reportedly asked job candidates to bring Apple hardware parts to interviews. This lawsuit comes as OpenAI plans to launch its first AI hardware in 2027, potentially impacting its IPO. Meanwhile, in the open source world, Bun founder Jared Sumner used the unreleased Claude Fable 5 model to rewrite Bun's million lines of Zig code into Rust, supported by Anthropic. The project took 11 days and cost $165,000 in API fees. The move aimed to fix memory safety bugs, but Zig creator Andrew Kelly hit back. Kelly criticized Sumner's engineering habits and warned that the rewritten code contains major safety hazards, sparking intense debate. And to wrap up this section, Sugan has launched China's first domestic 100,000 card AI cluster, the Sugan 8000, in Plezhou. The cluster uses an entirely domestic supply chain, from chips and storage to liquid cooling. It supports computing precision from PP64 to eNNT8, enabling both scientific computing and trillion-parameter model training. The system has already completed over 300 application adaptations and 70 tests at a 10,000 card scale. Part 2. Trends. Moving on to our next section, Meta has released Muse Spark 1.1, a multimodal reasoning model. It matches GLM 5.2 on the intelligence index but beats it in coding with a score of 71.3. The model features a 1 million token context window and drops the hallucination rate to 38%. Crucially, it costs just 26 cents per task. That is, 30% cheaper than GLM 5.2 and nearly 3 times cheaper than GPT 5.4, intensifying the AI price war. In other news, OpenAI is addressing backlash over its new GPT 5.6 Sol and ChatGPT. Work users complained about rapid quota depletion, a messy interface, and soul-diluting local files under persistent system prompts. OpenAI admitted to onboarding mistakes and issued 2 emergency quota resets. A major update next week will restore sidebar chat management and offer transparent quota tracking. Meanwhile, OpenAI confirmed that the standalone Codex app will remain active alongside ChatGPT work. Next up, OpenAI reports that GPT 5.6 Sol can autonomously handle post-training for its smaller Luna model, using vague prompts on the Codex platform. Sol independently found training configurations, selected GPUs, and verified scripts. In internal cursed self-improvement tests, Sol scored 16.2 points higher than its predecessor. This self-evolution capability has doubled the daily token output for OpenAI's researchers, signaling a faster loop for AI-assisted research and development. Finally today, the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence and Beihang University have launched Orca, a World Foundation model for embodied AI. Instead of predicting pixels, Orca models world states in an abstract internal space. It trained on 125,000 hours of action-free video, combined with text instructions. In 5 robotic tasks, Orca matched the performance of the specialized Pi 0.5 model, using just 200 real-world demonstrations for fine-tuning. First up today, Google has launched its fastest and cheapest image generation model, Nano Banana 2 Lite, also known as Gemini 3.1 Flashlight Image. It costs just $0.034 per 1001K resolution images. Google also opened its Gemini Omni Flash Video API to developers, enabling text or image inputs to generate 720p video with synchronized audio. Developers can now chain these two models in Google AI Studio to create low-cost, automated image-to-video webwigs. Next, a breakthrough in speed, DeepSeek and Peking University have introduced DSpark, a speculative decoding module for the DeepSeek V4 model series. DSpark combines parallel draft generation with Markov, head-fine, tuning to accelerate generation speeds without losing model accuracy. It boosts DeepSeek V4 flash speed by 60 to 85% and the Pro version by 57 to 78%. Crucially, it dynamically adjusts verification length based on real-time server load to optimize computing power. Moving on to brain-computer interfaces, Meta and French research institutions have released Brain 2 Quarty V2, a system translating brainwaves directly into text using non-invasive magnetoencephalography. Researchers recorded 90 hours of typing data from 9 subjects. The system decodes brainwaves into characters, maps them to word vectors, and uses a fine-tuned Quenin 3-4B model for error correction. This version reduced the word error rate from 43 to 39%, showing strong joint training performance. In hardware news, NVIDIA has introduced Vera, a new CPU architecture orchestrated for AI agents. Vera targets CPU bottlenecks caused by tool calls, code execution, and retrieval validation, feeding 88 custom Olympus cores and 1.2 terabytes per second of memory bandwidth. It delivers 1.8 times the single-thread performance of mainstream x86 CPUs. In tests by Perplexity, Vera boosted CUDA Fracom speeds by 1.5 times and Sandbot startup speeds by 1.9 times. And to wrap up this section, and Group S Robiant has released Lingbot VA 2.0, a native embodied foundation model. The model uses a native causal DIT and a sparse mixture of experts' video stream to compress world states and actions into a 96-channel latent space. Through foresight reasoning, it asynchronizes overlaps prediction and execution. Thanks to low-precision compilation and distillation, chunk latency dropped from 927 milliseconds to just 142 milliseconds, achieving a control frequency of 225 Hz. Part 3. Tools. Starting our next section on tools, Qt and Mirlo have released Moscriptor, an open-source decoder-only transformer model for music transcription. It automatically identifies pitch, duration, and instrument categories from full audio mixes to output split track MIDI files, trained on synthetic data and 170,000 real recordings. It uses reinforcement learning to achieve a multi-instrument F1 score of 48.2 on the D test benchmark, easily beating the Your MT3 plus baseline of 21.9. Meanwhile, a new privacy tool developers have released Private PI Anonymizer, an open-source plugin for Open Web UI. Running locally as ExpressMUI, it automatically detects and replaces sensitive personal information like names, emails, and phone numbers with placeholder before sending requests to cloud models. Once the model responds, the plugin restores the original data locally. Pursued by Microsoft Presidio and local on NX privacy models, it secures user data without sacrificing the usability of cloud-based AI. Finally today, a Shihu creator has shared the Ramanujan Similars, an open-source mathematical discovery project inspired by the Ramanujan machine. It uses numerical algorithms to search for continued fraction identities and new conjectures about constants like pi and e without prior proofs. The tool uses MEAT in the middle searches and hash table matching algorithm. This reverses the traditional mathematical discovery process, allow algorithm to scan structures and propose conjectures for humans to prove later. First, Open Tools developers have released Routes, Scribe, an open-source Midzone on NPM for Node.js and Express. This tool addresses the tedious and error-prone process of manually maintaining API documentation. Root Scribe works by observing and analyzing real API traffic at root home. It automatically captures request paths, parameters, request bodies, and response formats to dynamically generate standard OpenAPI and Swagger specification documentation maintenance for developers. Finally, for this section, to prevent AI agents like GPT 5.6 Sol from accidentally deleting local files while running code in YOLO mode, developers have launched Destructive Command Guard, or DC, alongside Bash Guard. These open-source tools add a pre-to-use hook to the shell. This hook intercepts and blocks dangerous commands that attempt to modify or delete files outside the code repository, providing a crucial physical safety barrier for running highly autonomous programming agents locally. Part 4. Learning. Starting our next section on learning, Hugging Face has released the third part of its PyTorch performance profiling tutorial series, focusing on umpiving attention mechanisms. The tutorial compares naive attention, in-place mask optimization, and the 4 backends of SDPay on an A100 GPU using profiler traces. It explains how simple in-place would-nens eliminate mem operators, and why flash retention achieves exceptionally high throughput on Templeton Karas despite operating at a low occupancy rate. Next, simulating disasters with agents. Carnegie, Mellon University, Tsinghua, and Stanford are using large language model agents for disaster reduction. CMU simulated a graduation ceremony, evacuation with 13,000 agents to update emergency protocols. Tsinghua University open-sourced Agent Society, simulating 10,000 agents reacting to a hurricane at a city scale. Meanwhile, Tianjin University introduced the rescue system, separating physical and cognitive architectures to simulate crowd pushing and trampling during subway fires. Moving to machine learning research, Apple has introduced a training-free diagnostic framework for on-policy knowledge distillation during reasoning model post-training. The framework analyzes distillation signals at the token, question, and teacher model levels. It defines an ideal gradient to maximize student success rates and uses a gradient aggregated score to quantify it. Experiments show that distillation guidance aligns significantly better on rollouts where the student model fails, while teacher signals often become noise on correct rollouts. And to wrap up this section, Amazon and the University of Michigan have developed Hydro Shear, a physical simulator for robotic tactile shear forces, using a path-dependent force-tracking algorithm. It records deformation history as objects slide on soft sensors, converting it into high-fidelity 3D force fields. Grasping policies trained in Hydro Shear via reinforcement learning were deployed directly onto a real Franca robot without fine-tuning, achieving a 93% success rate in contact-intensive tasks like peg insertion. Part 5. Business. First in business news, Tencent is reportedly in talks to acquire a majority stake in Singapore-based AI agent startup Manus at a $2 billion valuation. This follows reports that the Beijing government halted Meta's acquisition of Manus and restricted its founders' travel. American venture capital firms like Benchmark are not expected to participate. Manus currently operates independently with nearly $500 million in annual revenue, and Tencent plans to integrate its AI agent technology deeply into the WeChat ecosystem. Finally, today, South Korean chipmaker SK Hynix has listed on the Nasdaq, raising $26.5 billion in the largest foreign IPO in U.S. history. Beating Alibaba's $25 billion record from 2014, the stock surged 14% on its first day due to its dominant position in high-bandwidth memory. SK Hynix will use the funds to build domestic fabrication plants and purchase EUV lithography machines, while the U.S. Commerce Secretary lobbies the company to build factories in America. Finally, in business news, Anthropic has announced a global strategic partnership with tech services giant Just to bring Claude into physical AI scenarios like chip verification, automotive manufacturing, and the Internet of Things. Just's hardware verification platform will integrate Claude code as a reasoning layer. It will automatically read chip pinouts and hardware schematics to write and run regression tests, shortening verification cycles by 50 to 70%. Just will also train 20,000 engineers globally on Claude. Part 6. Community. Starting our community section, the open source community is reacting strongly to a potential White House executive order that could restrict or censor open source AI models due to concerns over China's technological rise. Turing Award winner Yann LeCun and Beth warn that a restrict until permitted licensing system will destroy the American innovation ecosystem. They argue it cannot stop people from downloading models via torrents and will actually make systems less secure, urging the public to defend computational freedom. Next, a shift to open source. Hugging Face CEO Clem DeLange noted that high token costs are driving about half of Fortune 500 companies from renting closed-source keys to deploying open-source models. He mentioned that Chinese labs contribute the majority of open-source models downloaded in the U.S., which should motivate local ecosystem development. DeLange also emphasized that embodied AI and robotics require open-source transparency even more than chat tools due to physical privacy concerns in homes and factories. Meanwhile, a major speed breakthrough. During a 6-day Gemma challenge hosted by Google and Hugging Face, over 100 human developers collaborated with AI agents. Together, they boosted Gemma 4's inference speed by 5 times on a single NVIDIA A10G GPU. The team achieved a lossless inference speed of 315 tokens per second, with a lossy limit of over 490. Clem DeLange called this collaboration a milestone demonstrating the power of agent network effects. Moving on to academic publishing, the Reddit community is actively debating whether to limit the number of submissions per author at machine learning conferences. This discussion comes as exponential growth in submissions severely degrades peer review quality. Users point out that the transactions on machine learning research has already introduced an annual submission cap. Meanwhile, conferences like ACERD are exploring automatic desk rejects for irrelevant papers. Another interesting community project, users on Reddit's local Llama community are discussing how to build a local LLM survival kit that runs entirely off a 64GB flash drive. The kit would include Llama guide Bullseymaries for major operating systems, models like Quinn 3.5 or Gemma 4, and compressed database of Wikipedia and open-source medical books. This setup allows users to query knowledge at 5 to 20 tokens per second on old computers without internet or a GPU. And to wrap up this section, the release of GPT 5.6 featuring Luna, Terra, and Sol models alongside 5 effort levels has sparked community anxiety over token consumption. Users report that running Sol in Ultra mode automatically spawns Ultra-level subagents. This leads to exponential token usage that can easily drain a pro user's weekly quota in just a few hours. Developers recommend defaulting to the Luna model with medium effort or using third-party routing tools to control costs. Part 7. More. Finally today, in other news, the newly named Donald J. Trump International Airport in Florida has released a new, official logo that features obvious AI generation errors. Critics pointed out that the shield on the logo contains only 11 stripes instead of the standard 13 on the U.S. flag. Additionally, the eagle's right claw is heavily distorted, and the feathers and leaves are asymmetrical, drawing widespread mockery on social media over the use of unvetted AI images. Finally today, in other news, a viral video on Reddit shows 3 ChatGPT live voice bots attempting to take turns counting to 100. Instead of succeeding, the bots frequently miscounted, interrupted one another, and corrected each other in a confident yet foolish tone. Users joked that the hilarious interaction perfectly mimics inefficient corporate meetings, while developers noted it highlights the current logical limitations of multi-agent real-time voice collaborating. That's all 33 stories for today. Full written coverage is linked in the description. See you